The week after paying off her last credit card, she financed a car she didn't need. Not because she was reckless, not because she forgot what debt felt like. She did it because some part of her brain read zero balance and heard one word: permission. And that pattern is far more common and far more deliberate than anyone wants to admit. Most personal finance advice treats this as a willpower problem. You got comfortable, you lost discipline, you forgot the lessons. But that explanation has never sat right, because the people who do this aren't forgetting anything. They remember every late notice, every declined transaction, every month they ate rice and checked their balance twice a day. They remember perfectly, and they still went back. What's actually happening runs much deeper than memory or motivation. It lives in the part of your nervous system that was shaped during the years of scarcity. When money was tight for long enough, your brain stopped treating financial stress as a temporary condition and started treating it as the baseline, as normal, as, on some cellular level, safe, because at least it was familiar. Stability, by contrast, was the unknown. This is not a metaphor. The stress response system, the same architecture that kept your ancestors alive in physical danger, does not distinguish between a predator and an unpaid bill. Chronic financial stress literally rewires the threat detection circuitry in the prefrontal cortex. And when that rewiring has been in place long enough, the absence of the threat doesn't feel like relief. It feels like something is wrong. Psychologists call the broader phenomenon identity threat stability. The idea is simple but devastating. When the version of yourself that struggled for years finally disappears, because you paid off the debt, built the cushion, closed the gap, the brain doesn't throw a parade, it throws an alarm. Because that struggling person was you, and now they're gone. The stability doesn't feel like arrival, it feels like erasure. There's a woman I want you to think about. She grew up in a household where the lights got cut off twice a year like clockwork, where the conversation at dinner was always eventually about money, and it was never good. She internalized that rhythm. Scarcity wasn't just what happened to her family. It was the emotional weather she learned to navigate. She became fluent in it, competent inside of it. Crisis was where she knew exactly what to do. Fast forward 20 years. She has a stable job, a paid-off credit card, 3 months of emergency savings. And she is absolutely falling apart on the inside. Not because anything is wrong, because nothing is. The quiet feels louder than the chaos ever did. And then, one afternoon, she walks past a furniture store, sees a couch she doesn't need on 18 months same as cash, and something in her exhales. The familiar weight returns. She feels, without being able to explain it, like herself again. That exhale is the whole mechanism, right there. It wasn't greed, it wasn't stupidity. It was homeostasis, the body's drive to return to a known state. Her nervous system had been calibrated for decades around the tension of owing something. When that tension disappeared, her system went hunting for it. The debt wasn't a mistake. For her nervous system, it was a correction. And here's where it gets more complicated, because this isn't only about people who grew up poor. It also happens to people who grew up middle class, but spent their 20s in financial chaos. It happens to people who went through a divorce that gutted their savings. It happens to anyone who spent long enough operating in crisis mode that their definition of normal quietly shifted around them without them noticing. The threshold is duration, not origin. There's another layer to this, and it involves identity in a way that most people resist hearing. For a lot of people, being in debt, struggling, grinding, working towards something, carries a quiet moral weight that stability doesn't. The hustle has dignity. The sacrifice has meaning. Paying off the last dollar should feel triumphant, and sometimes it does, for about a week. Then the question surfaces, unbidden. If I'm not fighting anymore, what am I? This is the identity vacuum. And the brain abhors a vacuum the same way nature does. Without the structure that debt and scarcity provided, the goals, the urgency, the daily meaning of progress, the mind reaches for something to fill the space. Sometimes it's a new business venture, sometimes it's a relationship, and sometimes it's a car note or a furniture set or a vacation on a credit card. because at least that restores the shape of a life the brain recognizes. So what do you actually do about this? Because knowing the mechanism doesn't automatically diffuse it. The first thing, and this sounds almost insultingly simple, is to expect the discomfort. Not to push through it or suppress it, but to name it when it arrives. To say out loud, I feel destabilized by being stable. I feel an urge to create tension, because tension is where I know who I am. Naming it doesn't cure it, but it inserts a pause between the feeling and the action. The second thing is to build what therapists who work at the intersection of trauma and finance call structured forward tension. Your nervous system needed the debt for the urgency and direction it provided. You can give it those things without the liability attached. An aggressive savings goal with a real deadline. A skill you're working toward in measurable increments. A creative project with stakes. The brain doesn't care whether the tension comes from owing or from building. It just needs somewhere to direct the energy. The third thing is the hardest. You have to consciously reconstruct your identity around the stable version of yourself before the vacuum pulls you backward. This means finding communities of people who are also building, not just recovering. It means telling a new story about who you are. Not the person who survived the debt, but the person who is doing something with the freedom on the other side of it. That story doesn't write itself. You have to sit down and write it deliberately, because here is the honest truth about financial stability. Arriving there is not the end of the psychological work. For most people, it is the beginning of a completely different and more disorienting chapter. The money problems were covering for something. The urgency was doing emotional labor. When the cover comes off, what's underneath it has to be faced. And that facing is something that no budget app, no debt payoff calculator, no financial influencer telling you to cut lattes has ever prepared you for. The people who stay stable are not the people who wanted it more. They're not more disciplined, or more grateful, or more virtuous. They're the people who understood that the arrival was also a threshold, that the brain that got them out of debt was calibrated for scarcity, and that a new calibration was now required. They did that work, not in a spreadsheet, in the uncomfortable, disorienting quiet of finally having nothing to fight against and choosing to build anyway.